we're back for another tips and tricks session. I've invited Thomas back. Servus, Thomas.
Servus, Andy.
Hey, Thomas, you showed me a couple of cool things that you've recently done with Davis CoPilot, with our generative AI. And you said you're using this on a day-to-day basis because people have asked you, how can you become more efficient with Dynatrace, with the AI? And so I said, show me your tips and tricks that you're using every day.
Of course, Andy. Yeah, thanks for having me again. Recently we have made many improvements into Davis CoPilot and into our generative AI. So one of the first things that I believe is really amazing about Davis CoPilot is that recently we added this explanation of problems with AI to our problem screen, right? So I have here this new little button, Explain with AI, and once I click on this one, I immediately get an explanation of this problem, what has happened, and most importantly, I actually get some actionable steps to remediate, right? So this is like really the cool thing that is added here also with CoPilot, that we can actually get some ideas on how we could improve the stability of our environment. And I can even ask further questions here, right? So if I ask, for example, for this problem, how can I increase the CouchDB limits? Right? So, and I ask this, and then I get an explanation of how I can actually remediate this problem, how I can actually fix the files, even everything. So I can take advantage of the knowledge that is built into large language models and get to have an idea of how I can actually solve this problem straight away.
Yeah, and especially I think really cool. I mean, we are using here our playground tenant, our demo environment, but already here we have a variety of technologies. And if you think about if you're an SRE, a DevOps, a platform engineer, and you're responsible for everything from a Java application to a mainframe, everything from running on a VM to a Kubernetes cluster, I really also like this. And also here with the CouchDB example, I might not be a CouchDB expert.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
You can't be an expert for everything,
Yeah.
but large language models, they benefit from all the knowledge that's out there on the internet, and you can benefit from it as well.
Cool. So this is already great, but I think you said, well, there's more we need to do because it's not perfect yet.
Well, of course, there is use cases where you would like to use Davis CoPilot also for your own kind of things, right? So I give you an example. Recently, a customer was approaching me and saying, hey, Thomas, I'm getting some false positives. Can you actually help me, right? And what we figured out then, when we looked at their environment was, hey, they have some false positives, but the false positives is actually because they had some HTTP 500 errors, where the exception message was something like username and password not valid, right?
Okay, so it's more like a coding issue. So if somebody tried to log in with the wrong username and password, it's typically, what do you typically return?
It would be a 403 typically,
a
right?
403, not a 500, yeah.
Right.
I've also seen the other way around. I've seen error messages being hidden behind an HTTP 200. So I guess both directions can happen in software development, yeah?
Of course, and typically in Dynatrace what you do is that you just fine-tune the service settings so that you make sure that we actually identify the problems as problems and the non-problems not as problems, right?
Yeah.
So, and one of the things where large language models are really good is when it comes to classification of certain kind of things, right? Yeah. So there's things where LLMs are not good. That's why we have different modules in Davis, right? So if I ask you, what is 15 times 934? It will be difficult, right? So we have different modules in Davis. Some of them are more specialized on statistical multivariate analysis, and we have, of course, also these large language models. And if I look at this example here, right, I have multiple different services that have like a higher amount of failures, right? So in this case here, 25%, right? So I want to ideally get rid of those false positives and look at it from what are false positives actually. And what I can do in this dashboard here, for example, is that I can leverage Davis CoPilot to ask here, in this supplied list of exceptions, are there any that sound like we should do something with it, right? So I can right-click on this, open record with, and ask Davis CoPilot a question here. And then Davis CoPilot can actually tell me, yeah, there are some exceptions that sound like they could lead to false positives. So in my case here, I can actually see quite some of them.
Yeah.
So the first one here, for example, bio for user with ID, something not found, right?
Could be indicating a wrong username was used, yeah, for instance.
Exactly, right? So you should actually consider adding this as an ignored exception, right? So, and then I can also get a link to this and configure the failure detection of that service directly. So in here, what I typically would do is that I would override the global failure detection settings and add this in here as an ignored exception, right? So basic things, but it really helps me in optimizing this. And let me just go back here. So I can just leverage the power of Davis CoPilot here directly. So how does this whole thing work, right? So what we did here actually is that we created a dashboard, and this dashboard actually has some very important columns. So it has a column in here that is called prompt. So when you have a column that is called prompt, then automatically what you will get is this open with Davis CoPilot, right? So that's the first one that we can see here. The second one is called execute. So execute just means, okay, do we want to execute straight away, or do I want to adjust something in here? And then lastly, and that's the most important thing, I need to provide context to the large language model. So in this case here, I'm giving it some supplementary information, which is my exceptions, and some instructions on what kind of output I would like to get here. So if I look at this here, this is my supplemental information. These are my exceptions that I've got here. And how did I get this? So of course, this is where the power of Grail comes in. Yeah. So we can query any kind of data, whether it's spans, whether it's logs, whether it's user sessions, whatsoever, right? I can get all this data, and then I just, at the very end, add here my fields add, a prompt, this execute, and then the context where I'm saying, okay, well, this is supplementary, this is my exceptions, and last but not least here, some instructions. So in this case here, I'm saying, I want to add a link to these exceptions, to the service ID, and then add this link directly to the failure detection of this one.
This is really cool. Can you scroll left again? So basically what you're doing, if you go all the way left, you are querying from spans all the exceptions from the service that you've selected on the dashboard. So give me the list of all the exceptions, and then you're creating a prompt, because you are, obviously you have invested some time, you know how prompting works, so you are the expert here.
Yeah.
And you have created that prompt in a way that you're not only defining the prompt, but you're also adding additional supplementary information. And I really like the instruction field. So actionable items. So not that I just have a lot of text and I yet then need to do something manually again for the next step, but you can actually then click on that link, and that's awesome. It's really,
exactly.
really cool. Yeah.
And I believe as an expert, you might have a lot of knowledge that you might to add in here as well, right? So you might have information already about certain exceptions. You can add a lot of different things in here, and I believe this is what makes this really, really powerful.
Yeah, and I think also when we talk about prompt engineering, I think the power of prompt engineering or prompt engineers will be that you are taking your expertise. If you're getting really good in creating prompts for certain LLMs, in this case for Davis CoPilot, you can now bake it into a dashboard, and now all of a sudden everyone that is using this dashboard will benefit from the way you crafted that prompt. So not everybody needs to become a prompt engineer, but you can enable everybody by baking your prompts into your dashboards. That's really cool.
And also, I believe, so I read this on the internet recently, the programming language of the year 2025 is English, right? Yeah. So I can easily modify these things here, right? So I'm just removing this execute equals true now. So what this means is that I'm actually not immediately executing this thing. So I can just ask Davis CoPilot a question here again, and now I get the prompt and I can still modify it, right? So I can say here, for example, prioritize this by the count of exceptions, right? And then all of a sudden this is giving me the count as well, and tells me more about this, right? So I can do many different things here. I could say, okay, I want to actually have this as a table. I could, do whatever kind of stuff. So it's very easy to adjust this to my specific needs right now, and yeah, work with that.
That's really awesome, and it's so. I mean, it looked so simple. The power is behind the scenes, obviously, right? But so you've created this dashboard. We've learned once you have a table where you have the value prompt or the field prompt, you have the open with Davis. Execute equals true means we automatically execute that prompt. If you do it false or not there, then you can modify it, and then the context with the additional supplementary information. Now, here's a question I know you've prepared, but I wanna kind of tease it. It's great we can put it into dashboards, but wouldn't it be cool if, for instance, every day in the morning I have a stand-up at 8 o'clock, I'm a development team, I would get this information just sent to me instead of me having to open up this dashboard every day?
100%, right? So, I mean, of course, when you have this kind of stuff, you want to automate. I would say automating everything here and just letting Dynatrace automatically change the settings here, it's a bit risky, right? Yeah. So we probably wouldn't do that straight away. But what we can do, of course, is that we can use our automations here. And in workflows, we actually have a new action in here, which is called Davis CoPilot workflow action.
That's awesome.
And in here, I can do the same kind of stuff that I have seen already on my dashboard, right? So I would do the same thing as before. I prepare a query first to get some data from Grail, use that data, and then put it into my Davis CoPilot workflow action. In here, then again, I have a prompt. So this time the prompt might be a little bit different, right? So in this case, I would like to, for example, get a JSON directly, which I can use in my monitoring as code and leverage that one then as the output here. And based on that, I can then also get some additional context that we have taken from before, right? And now if I run this workflow.
So it basically makes the query, that's awesome. Yep. And now it executes the prompt.
So once it's done, I can then get the result, and the result here says, okay, if I just open this up again here, it gives me my different services and immediately adds this different kind of exceptions in here. So that is how I can automate based on this as well. So really makes my life easy again.
Cool. And after this task, obviously, I could send it via an email, via Slack message. I could open up a pull request. I can do whatever.
Right? I have all the power of the automations in here. I could use GitHub to create a PR. I can send an email, whatsoever, right? It's really, really powerful. You can customize this to whatever your needs are here, and make your life a little easier.
Cool. Thank you so much, Thomas, for giving us some insights on how we can truly leverage LLMs. I think we now all see the power of how we can not only use the baked-in features of Davis CoPilots, like in the problems, but also how you can take your expertise that you have as a prompt engineer and put it into dashboards and really scale it. Folks, the dashboard that you see here, you will also get it on the playground. We'll also so that means you can download it. And thank you so much, and I'm sure we'll have you back.
Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye.